When people think of the Mongols Motorcycle Club, they usually picture black and white patches, long highway runs, police raids, and rows of heavily modified Harley-Davidsons. But some of the motorcycles connected to the eras that shaped Mongols' history are far more unusual than the ordinary Harleys seen at rallies. We are talking about one-year-only Shovelheads, forgotten factory customs, incredibly scarce FXRs, and machines built in numbers so small that finding an untouched example today can be difficult even for serious Harley collectors. And then there is the mysterious red custom Harley, photographed outside the home of one of the most famous Mongols presidents during one of the biggest biker investigations in American history. Its exact factory identity was never widely documented. So today, we are counting down 10 of the rarest and most fascinating Harley-Davidsons connected to the world, eras, and riding culture surrounding Mongols MC history. And number 1 isn't simply rare. It practically disappeared into one of the biggest federal cases the club ever faced. 01971 Harley-Davidson FX Superglide Boattail. Our story begins almost exactly where the Mongol story begins. The club was established in Montebello, California in December 1969. According to the Mongols' own historical account, early members were riding chopped Harley-Davidsons through East Los Angeles during the early 1970s. And one motorcycle perfectly represents that changing Harley culture, the 1971 FX Superglide, designed under Willie G. Davidson, the Superglide combined a big twin engine and chassis with lighter Sportster-inspired components. Harley itself describes it as its first factory custom. But the first-year motorcycle had one incredibly strange feature, a huge fiberglass rear section known today as the boat tail. At the time, customers weren't impressed. Only around 4,700 examples of the 1,971 Superglide were sold, and Harley quickly abandoned the boat tail design. Then something happened that made surviving examples even rarer. Owners started modifying them, boat tails were removed, stock handlebars disappeared, exhaust systems changed. Bikes were chopped and rebuilt according to the tastes of America's rapidly developing custom motorcycle scene. Which is exactly why an original 1,971 boat tail surviving today is so interesting. It represents the transition between factory Harley and street-built chopper culture, happening at precisely the same moment the Mongols were beginning to establish themselves in Southern California. 1977 Harley-Davidson FXS Lowrider. 6 years later, Harley finally understood what custom riders wanted. Instead of building a strange, futuristic tail, Harley studied what riders were already doing in garages. Lower suspension, longer-looking forks, black engine components, cast wheels, low handlebars, and in 1977, all of those ideas became the FXS Lowrider. The first-year model used a 1,200cc Shovelhead and had a dramatically lower stance than conventional Harleys. Approximately 3,742 FXS Lowriders were produced for 1,977. But unlike the boat tail, the Lowrider wasn't rejected. It became a hit. The machine looked like something a custom builder might create, but could be purchased directly from a Harley dealership. And that matters to the Mongol story because by the late 1970s, the club had already expanded beyond its original Montebello chapter into other parts of Southern California. The motorcycle culture around them was changing too. The stripped-down Harley was no longer something that needed to be built completely from scratch. Harley-Davidson was beginning to sell the outlaw-inspired aesthetic directly from the factory. Today, early lowriders are particularly desirable when they retain their original tanks, wheels, engine finish, and exhaust. Because many didn't. They were perfect candidates for customization. And once again, the modifications that made them cooler decades ago are exactly what make untouched survivors difficult to find today. 1983 Harley-Davidson XR1000. This one looks different. Because it was different. The Harley-Davidson XR1000 wasn't built primarily for relaxed cruising. It was Harley attempting to bring some of its flat-track racing DNA onto the street. The motorcycle used a Sportster-based chassis combined with special cylinder heads, twin Del Orto carburetors, and high-mounted exhaust pipes. The result was one of the most aggressive Harley street machines of its era, and extremely few were produced. The National Motorcycle Museum estimates that only around 1,100 XR1000S were built across 1,983 and 1,984. That makes it substantially rarer than many Harleys that receive far more attention today. Its appearance also worked against it. For riders who wanted a traditional, long, low American cruiser, the XR1000 almost looked too much like a racing motorcycle. But that is exactly what makes it special now. It was fast, unusual, expensive, and short-lived. An XR1000 fitted with period custom touches would have been one of the most distinctive Harleys on any Southern California street in the early 1980s. Today, collectors increasingly want them returned to stock condition. Finding one that escaped decades of modification is the challenge. The last Shovelhead era FX wide glides. If one Harley silhouette belongs naturally in old-school outlaw motorcycle imagery, it is the wide glide. Long front end, narrow profile, low seat. Large big twin motor sitting in full view. Harley introduced the FXWG wide glide around the beginning of the 1980s. Using styling heavily influenced by the custom choppers riders had already been building themselves. And the early wide glides were still powered by the legendary Shovelhead. By 1984, however, Harley was transitioning toward the Evolution engine. The company temporarily built old and new engine generations alongside one another before ending Shovelhead production. Historical material places the final Shovelhead production in 1984. That creates an interesting collector category today. The final Shovelhead era FX. These bikes were built at the end of one of Harley-Davidson's most recognizable mechanical periods. But many were never preserved. They were ridden, engines were rebuilt, frames were modified, forks were extended, paint was changed, and entire motorcycles were transformed into personalized club-style machines. A survivor retaining the correct engine, frame, tanks, and period hardware can therefore be significantly harder to find than production numbers alone would suggest. And in the world of old-school MC motorcycles, originality is almost ironic. The riders who owned these machines didn't necessarily want museum pieces. They wanted motorcycles that looked like theirs. 1986 Harley-Davidson FXRD Grand Touring. Now we arrive at one of Harley's strangest forgotten machines, the 1986 FXRD Grand Touring. Imagine taking Harley's famous FXR chassis, known for better handling, and its rubber-mounted Evolution engine, and turning it into a fully equipped long-distance touring motorcycle. Fairing, hard luggage, touring equipment, full-sized comfort, but underneath all of it remained an FXR. The FXRD was essentially a one-year experiment. Meckham has described surviving examples as one of roughly 1,000 estimated units produced, while specialist references caution that exact production totals are not completely consistent across sources. Either way, complete examples are uncommon. And there is another reason. Owners frequently strip the touring equipment away. Once you remove the large bags and fairing, underneath was the desirable FXR platform. That meant some FXRDs effectively disappeared by being converted into ordinary-looking custom motorcycles. Today, collectors want the exact components people once threw away: original luggage, correct touring bodywork, factory trim, even mounting hardware. And that's what makes the FXRD fascinating. Sometimes a motorcycle becomes rare because almost none were made. Other times it becomes rare because people didn't realize they should preserve it. 1995 Harley-Davidson FX STSB Bad Boy. Even the name sounds like something designed for biker culture. Bad Boy. Harley introduced the FX STSB Bad Boy during the 1990s as a darker, more aggressive version of its Springer Softail. Black Springer front end, black components, minimal chrome compared with many traditional Harleys, a narrow front wheel, and the famous Evolution V twin. It looked old without actually being old. The Springer front suspension visually referenced Harley designs from decades earlier, while underneath was modern Softail engineering. For 1,995, reported production was only around 3,367 motorcycles, and the bad boy itself survived for only a short model run. That makes original examples increasingly desirable. But once again, there is a problem. This was exactly the type of Harley owners loved modifying. New exhaust, different handlebars, custom tanks, different seats, engine upgrades. The more personalized the motorcycle became, the less original bad boy remained, which means that 3 decades later, the truly rare version isn't necessarily the wildest custom. It may be the bike nobody touched. 1999 Harley-Davidson CVO FXR2. Now we enter serious collector territory. By the late 1990s, Harley's legendary FXR had already disappeared from normal production. Then, something unexpected happened. Harley brought it back. In 1999, the company launched what became its Custom Vehicle Operations, or CVO program. One of the first motorcycles produced was the FXR2. It had the familiar rubber-mounted Evolution engine, a 21-inch front wheel, premium components, and extremely limited production. Harley Historical Material places production at only around 900 examples. Think about that. Harley wasn't manufacturing hundreds of thousands of these. It was essentially building a factory custom in collector-level numbers. And the FXR was already developing a cult reputation among riders. Its frame was stiff, its handling was respected. It was lighter and more responsive than many large Harleys. That made it particularly attractive to riders who cared about more than simply cruising in a straight line. Today, the FXR2 represents the moment Harley resurrected one of its most loved platforms for one final chapter, but its sibling was arguably even more visually recognizable. 1999 Harley-Davidson CVO FXR3. The FXR3 took the same basic idea and made it louder. Different wheels, more chrome, wild factory paint, flames, and again, production was extremely small. Historical sources put the total around 900 motorcycles, though exact archival totals vary slightly depending on how individual colors and markets are counted. That makes an authentic FXR3 much harder to encounter than the average production Harley from the late 1990s. But here's what makes the bike particularly interesting in MC culture. The factory was doing what custom riders had done for decades, taking a proven Harley platform and making it visually impossible to ignore. Paint, chrome, stance, identity. The motorcycle wasn't transportation first and decoration second. Its visual identity was part of the entire reason it existed. And if that sounds familiar, it should. Motorcycle clubs have always understood that a bike communicates something before the rider ever says a word. 2000 Harley-Davidson CVO FXR4. Harley brought the FXR back from the dead, and then killed it again. The final chapter was the 2000 FXR4. The motorcycle retained the 1,340cc Evolution powertrain and received wild CVO paint, including Screaming Yellow Pearl and Candy Tangerine combinations. Harley's own historical material states that only 988 FXR4S were produced, while period enthusiasts and auction references generally round the figure to approximately 1,000. And then it was over. The FXR4 represented the final factory production chapter of the FXR platform. That alone makes it collectible. But consider where it sits historically. The Mongols had entered the 2000s as a club far larger and more visible than the 15-member group that began in Montebello 3 decades earlier. Harley technology had transformed too. Shovelheads had given way to Evolutions. Carburetors were beginning to disappear. Factory custom motorcycles had become an entire industry. Yet the basic philosophy remained recognizable. A big American V-twin, low stance, personalized appearance, and a motorcycle that could act almost like an extension of the rider's identity. But none of those rare factory Harleys has quite the documented connection of our final motorcycle, because number 1 was actually photographed during a defining moment in Mongols history. Ruben Doc Cavazos' mysterious red custom Harley, the 21st of October, 2008. Federal authorities launched one of the largest operations ever conducted against the Mongols. The investigation became known as Operation Black Rain. After years of undercover work, authorities arrested dozens of people and executed more than 160 search warrants. The Department of Justice confirmed that dozens of motorcycles were seized as property allegedly connected to the enterprise. Photos from the operation showed rows of confiscated motorcycles. One Harley had a leather seat carrying Mongols imagery. Another confiscated Harley even drew attention because investigators discovered that what appeared to be an oil dipstick concealed a small knife. But outside the West Covina home of former national president Ruben Doc Cavazos, reporters noticed something else: a red, custom-modified Harley-Davidson motorcycle sitting outside. Contemporary reporting specifically identified it as a customized Harley. And this is where things become fascinating. The mainstream reports did not clearly publish its exact Harley model. No detailed collector profile appeared. No widely circulated factory specification sheet. No famous auction listing identifying every component. Just a customized red Harley captured in the background of one of the most important days in Mongols history, which makes it rare in an entirely different way. Not factory production rarity, historical visibility. Thousands of people have seen pictures of Mongols motorcycles. Millions know about the club. Yet individual machines connected to major members often disappeared into impound lots, evidence inventories, private ownership changes, rebuilding, or simple anonymity. A Harley can survive while its story disappears. And that may be exactly what makes bikes like this one more interesting than a pristine museum motorcycle. Because if that red Harley still exists today, somewhere underneath later paint, different handlebars, another engine rebuild, or an entirely new identity, could be a motorcycle that witnessed one of the biggest turning points in Mongols MC history, and almost nobody looking at it would know. From the strange 1971 Boattail Superglide to the final CVO FXR4, Harley-Davidson history is filled with motorcycles that became rare for completely different reasons. Some were unpopular. Some were produced for only a year. Some were manufactured in fewer than 1,000 examples. And others became almost impossible to identify because riders modified them until very little of the original motorcycle remained. That's especially important when looking at motorcycle club history. These weren't always machines designed to sit untouched underneath showroom lights. They were meant to be ridden, rebuilt, and personalized. That is why tracking the exact Harleys behind decades of Mongols history can be surprisingly difficult. Federal records confirm motorcycles were seized. Historical photographs confirm customized Harleys carrying club imagery existed. And the Mongols' own history describes its earliest members riding chopped Harley-Davidsons through Southern California. But many individual machines remain anonymous. And somewhere out there, one of those forgotten Harleys may still be running. Its current owner might see nothing more than an old, customized motorcycle. But hidden underneath the paint, metal, and decades of modifications could be a piece of outlaw motorcycle history that nobody has identified yet. And that is what makes these motorcycles truly rare.